macabre, gruesome and horrifying, ghastly, of pertaining to, dealing with, or representing death, especially its grimmer or uglier aspect, of or suggestive of the allegorical dance of death. Prepare yourself for these macabre moments.
Hi, Kari.
Hi, Marie.
And welcome, everybody, to the April episode of Macabre Moments. We are super excited for tonight's guest. Kari, what's the scoop on this guy?
Well, Marie, tonight's guest has a pretty impressive resume. He's the author of over a dozen books. He's a lecturer, researcher, adventurer, explorer, writer for the popular television series Ghost Adventures, and the host of his own Emmy-nominated television show, New England Legends. He's the most interesting man in the paranormal world.
We would like to welcome Mr. Jeff Belanger to the show. Jeff, thank you so much.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. Good to be here.
So, do you prefer Dos Equis or...
or Corona?
Corona.
I wasn't going to go there.
Lime?
Negro Modelo. I mean, cerveza. There's all kinds of Mexican cerveza we can talk about. I have no problem with drinking Corona beer. I'm just that brave.
It's not Corona's fault.
Yeah, right. I like Corona too. I prefer Pacifico over Corona myself.
Yeah, sure. No, I've had them all. Yeah, no, it's the poor people that work at Corona Beer, which has nothing in the world to do with anything, other than the name is now like sullied forever. You know, it's going to be like some summer day, and you're going to be like, oh, Corona with lime. But you know what? I'm going to go Pacifico instead, just because. Like, I don't want to remember those months of not working and all that other stuff. And poor Corona. And that's the power of a story, right? And of a legend and of an association, right? As soon as something now has this negative connotation, you overwrite anything positive. I remember many a happy memory with a Corona beer, at the beach over whatever. And while I have no issue whatsoever with drinking it, I would hate to work in marketing for Corona beer right now.
Yeah, I like to live on the edge. I'm still going to drink it.
Yeah, well, so am I, if it's there. But I don't know if I'd go out of my way for it. You know what I mean?
So you're giving in to the whole connotation bit then?
I'm not, but
okay.
I'm just saying, like, I love beer, and I love a wide variety of beer when I do have it. I tend to not, stick to one brand all the time. I tend to try, 100 different ones. So, but there is going to be that moment of like, oh, Corona, right. That. You can't help it.
Craft beer is a huge thing here in Canada, where I am in British Columbia.
Yeah.
Just outside of Vancouver. Is it the same where you are?
Oh, absolutely. I live right near Boston, and this is a hub. I mean, I live in a small town outside of Boston. There's 4 breweries within 5 miles. I mean, just, microbrews, just like brew pubs. You go in, you drink it there, whatever. And it's everywhere.
Oh yeah, I was just in Boston in October. It's beautiful there. I love New England.
Yeah, it's a great area. I was born here. I recognize I'm biased, but I do love it. I've been all over the world, and this is home. And I love that we've got this kind of like old world European charm, this strange sensibility. Like we struggle with our puritanical roots, which can still be felt, 4 centuries later. But also we kind of acknowledge so much of our haunted history and our legends in a very matter-of-fact way that's kind of fun. It's a great area. I'm a fan.
And how can you not be? I mean, it's gorgeous over there.
Yeah, but Vancouver's great too, and Seattle. I've been to both cities, and I'm proud to say that some of my DNA is on the Seattle gum wall right now.
Oh, excellent. Me too.
Yeah.
I wonder if ours are side by side. Wouldn't that be weird?
It's, I guess, mathematically possible. Unlikely, but possible. Yeah. Well, how tall are you?
Like 5'5".
Yeah, so I'm like 6'2", so I'd say I probably aimed higher.
I went down low.
Yeah, see, I probably went like shoulder height, so there's a chance we're probably not that close.
Well, actually,
if people don't know, we should probably fill people in if they don't know what the gum wall is. Do you want to take this?
Well, I was going to give you some bad news about the gum wall, actually.
What? It's gone?
Yes,
No.
It was starting to affect the structure of the building, like you know, what's the word I'm looking for? The
Sugar, saliva, like.
it was making the wall come apart.
It
So
was eroding it.
yeah,
Okay, so wait, let's just rewind for a second. If people have no idea what we're talking about, right near the famous market, right in
The Pike
downtown,
Place Market,
the
yeah.
Pike's Place Market, where they throw the fish and all that other stuff. There's a theater in a little alleyway, and someone one day was chewing gum and was done with their gum and just stuck it right to the wall. And that probably doesn't sound all that amazing to anyone. That happens everywhere. But then someone else stuck some gum to the wall, and then someone else and someone else, till there was just millions upon millions of pieces of chewed gum all along this wall in an explosion of Skittles-like rainbow, right? Like everywhere, just all over the wall. And it was there for years and years, and it got to the point where people were taking pictures by it. And then, of course, when you're there, you want to become part of that story. So you find yourself chewing gum. You're like, oh, well, I can add to this easy enough. And then there you go. You just stick your gum. And mine was there. And I guess all that saliva and sugar and whatever else is in chewing gum started to eat away at the concrete of the wall or whatever.
Yeah.
And
it started to affect the structural integrity of the building.
Wow, it's like picture a million people licking a wall. We could bring a building down.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that too, because I wasn't going to say this, but that was kind of a thing when the gum wall was still there. Is people would pay people to lick the gum wall? Yeah. But oddly enough,
and then you catch coronavirus, and we're back.
Right? Well, and I was going to say 30 odd minutes. Oddly enough, the year that they took the gum wall down, I believe it was 2017.
Okay.
I got a month calendar, you know, so it's got the whole, or a year calendar. It's got the whole year on one sheet, and the majority of it's an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. The majority of the sheet of paper is a photograph, and it was a photograph, up close photograph of the gum wall.
Nice.
And then that summer, they ended up taking the gum wall down, so I framed that calendar, and I will put a picture of that in the post of this podcast in the comments so people can see it, because that was the year they actually took it down. So I was like, oh my God, I'm so glad I have this calendar to remember the year that they took the gum wall down.
Yeah, that was a thing. It's funny what becomes a thing. Right? Like, I mean, in any other city, someone sticks gum to a wall and someone scrapes it off or whatever. But it became a thing. They left it a thing until it couldn't be there anymore. And that's the irony of this discussion is that it sums up all my life's work. You know, like, right? Like, so we're talking about a gum wall, which is just silly and crazy and awesome all at the same time. But if you're talking about like a haunted place, it's the same thing, right? Like someone decided that this building is haunted and the one right next to it is not. And so why, right? Why is that? And we don't fully know. But the answer is that something weird happened in one of those buildings, and we're still talking about it.
Well, so speaking of legends, yeah, I mean, we definitely dubbed you the most interesting man in the paranormal world. And I think a lot of that has to do with your knowledge, just in general of all things paranormal, but especially legends and lore. Now, I'm sure you're aware that Jordan Peele is remaking the movie Candyman.
Oh, is he? So I'm a fan of his other horror. He's doing things in horror that like he's innovating in a genre that hasn't had innovation in a long, long time.
I almost feel like he's Hitchcock reincarnated.
He might be, right? Like, so what did I just watch? I've watched two of his movies in the last like 6 months. One was the name some of his big titles recently. Get Out. We just watched Get Out like 2 weeks ago. That was great.
And then the other one was Others. The other.
Other
No,
Us, maybe? Us.
Yeah. I just watched those two and I was like, whoa, this guy's like innovating, man. I mean, they were good. It was really good, like horror. Like, you know, it wasn't just over, you know, because horror has gone like either like slasher or you got to be really smart and like go suspense, which is harder to do. Mm-hmm. And he's somehow he's able to hit so many nerves. So he's redoing Candyman. I was at a bar once with the actor, the Candyman actor.
Oh, Tony Todd.
Tony, right. And so we were at this convention, and it was the bar, and he was just walking up behind people, especially the women, and just being like, Candyman, like right behind them. And, ooh. It was great. So I'm can't wait to see what Jordan does with it. I'm sure it's going to be awesome.
Well, I'm wondering, was there ever a Candyman before that movie that it was based off of some urban legend from some story from some city that you're aware of?
I'm totally aware of it. It's absolutely Bloody Mary. It's not Candyman.
Oh,
It's the Bloody Mary story. And the Bloody Mary, of course, is it's told in very various forms. But my favorite version is that there was this beautiful young woman named Mary Worth, and one day she had a horrible accident, and her face was horribly disfigured, and her parents didn't think she'd be able to stand the sight of her own reflection, so they hid all the mirrors in the house so she wouldn't have to see herself. But one day she gets curious, and she knows people are making fun of her. They're mocking her when she's walking on the street, but she's never allowed to look, and she's never allowed herself to look at what she's actually looks like right now. And when she gets curious, she finally finds a mirror, and she's so appalled by her own reflection that she goes into the realm of the mirror and vows to seek revenge on anyone who ever says her name or whoever summons her. And of course, you summon her by holding a candle in front of a mirror, and you say Bloody Mary 3 times or 10 times or 13 times, whatever number you decide is important. And that legend has kicked around forever and ever. And it speaks to so many different facets of the human experience, right? So we're talking about our own vanity, right? Like don't stare at a mirror too much. And there's power in the mirror. In the Jewish faith, after someone dies, right? You cover the mirrors in the house while you're sitting Shiva.
I was going to ask you about that, yeah.
Yeah, and part of the point is like you're not supposed to be worried about your own vanity or your own appearance right now. You're supposed to be grieving. Sitting Shiva is all about like just get it out, grieve, just do it right now, and then you start to emerge and come back to your life, but deal with your emotions right now. And so there's always been power in the mirror. There's the narcissist, that story of the man who fell so in love with his own reflection that he died staring at his own beauty
in the pond. Yeah, that was a Greek myth.
Yeah, right. Narcissy, right? Like, so that's where the term narcissist comes from, is someone who's just that in love with themselves. And so I mean, all that stuff we've got thousands of years of mystery and wonder. From Nostradamus getting visions in the reflection of a bowl of water, which is a mirror, right? It's a reflection.
Scrying.
Yeah, scrying. Yeah. So you've got all this stuff, and then combine it with this urban legend of Bloody Mary, and so Candyman was just kind of taking it to a more like horror slasher level. This guy you summon. So yeah, it's just kind of cribbing off of Bloody Mary. Have you either of you ever tried to summon Bloody Mary at a sleepover or anything when you were a teenager?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Did it work?
Well, so my understanding of Bloody Mary was you wouldn't see Bloody Mary, but your eyes would bleed.
Oh, yeah, okay. That's fine. Yeah, you heard it a different way. And then there's also another version would be that you would see yourself as an old woman or an old man if you're, and so there's so many variations on it. But in some versions, like Mary jumps out of the mirror and attacks you. And I've had emails. It's the funniest thing. Though I don't believe, the logical part of my brain says, come on, it's ridiculous to think that someone lives in the realm of a mirror. It's a piece of glass, right? There's nothing to it. But this is my challenge to anyone listening, right? When you're alone, wherever you live, like house, apartment, whatever, next time you're alone, try it. Go get a candle and a mirror. Make sure it's dark and you're totally alone. And just say it, Bloody Mary. Bloody Mary. And do you have that moment right before you say it the third time where you just go, oh, man, what if, right?
Like, should I do this?
Should I? Like, there's going to be some little, there's just, and you don't have to answer. Just be honest with yourself. Is there some little piece of you inside that just goes, maybe just go ahead and say it twice and leave it at that, blow the candle out and go open another Corona. I don't know. I don't know. And that's how powerful a legend is. Though it sounds like insanity, it can't be true. There's a piece of you that wonders. I've had emails over the years, especially from like teenage girls who tried this at a sleepover. And they said, look, I know it's crazy, but my friend's face got scratched. She was actually bleeding and we were so freaked out. What do we do? I think we've unleashed Bloody Mary. We summoned her. And I mean, I don't really have advice. I wasn't there. I'm not going to investigate, but it's just, once in a while something comes along and that story just gets a shot in the arm.
Well, in the 18th or 19th century, didn't they used to, even in like America, they would cover the mirrors during a mourning process?
Yeah, I guess another fear is that the soul gets trapped, right, in the mirror, and there's all kinds of superstitions around the mirror. It's a powerful thing. And by the way, 7 years bad luck if you break a mirror. Yeah. Part of the reason for that was that mirrors were incredibly expensive at one point. Very difficult to come by. You had to have the metal behind it polished to a high degree. The glass is expensive. Owning a mirror was a pretty prestigious item at one point. Now we can get them for like $1 at the dollar store, and we don't think much of it. But back then, part of it was that number one, they were just really expensive, but they were revered. Parents would warn their kids, don't stare at it too much because of course vanity is one of the 7 deadly sins. Don't fall in love with yourself. So there was like all this stuff intertwined with the mirror. And that doesn't just go away just because mirrors get inexpensive and we take selfies. I mean, right, selfie is the new mirror, right? From like 150 years ago. Like, don't stand there just looking at your own reflection. It's weird, that's you narcissist. And now we just take selfies and post it on Instagram.
You kind of freaked me out with that one a little bit.
Are you guilty of like
no?
Doing the self?
I'm exactly the opposite, and I think that's why. Like, I'm not a big selfie taker.
Yes,
I never have been. I just don't like the concept of, there's other things to post besides myself. You know what I mean? Like, occasionally I'll throw up a picture of myself because I want people to know I am an actual person, right?
Sure. Yeah.
But if you go to my page, the majority of my posts are, memes or other things, not selfies. I've never been a selfie person. And I have this theory on mirrors. And so you just kind of blew my mind with that a little bit. I know.
What's your theory?
Well,
go ahead.
It's just carried on from what he was just talking about from the 19th century. I believe that spirits and other non-human entities can travel through mirrors.
Well, yeah, that's and then you started to touch on scrying. I believe was Akari did, right? So. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, there's magic in it. You've got the Oracle at Delphi was supposedly getting their visions through these bowls of water, which is a mirror. So there's so much power in that reflection. And the thing about it too, and I've thought about this in regard to photography in general. I'm a bit of a shutterbug. I do like to take pictures and have for a long time. And for the longest time, especially on the paranormal side, when I first started my website, ghostvillage.com, 21 years ago, by the way.
Oh, yeah, we should have put that in the dang intro.
No, it's fine.
Apologies.
No, it's okay. So I started ghostvillage.com 21 years ago in 1999. It's still up, still running, still going. And people loved sending in photographs of all kinds of things. Like, is this a ghost? Is this an orb? Is this a spirit orb? Like, there was so many discussions. And that's when I said, like, okay, well, how does a photograph work? And it turns out that just like a mirror, a photograph is distorted. Any photograph you've ever seen in your entire life is distorted, as is the mirror reflection, because the world is 3-dimensional. And when you look at a mirror or you look at a photograph, it is 2-dimensional. Everything is flattened. So something far away and big could look close and small, so everything just gets pushed together. So people find faces in photographs, right? Especially like you take a picture of trees. Suddenly you see faces that you didn't see when you were standing there taking the picture, because you flattened this 3-dimensional world. The mirror does that. The mirror, of course, flattens us. And so it looks like us. It is us, but it's just a little bit different. And I think people have kind of noticed that for as long as there have been mirrors. You look at yourself and you go, yeah, that's me, but not totally me. It's just a little bit different. And that unnerves us a little, doesn't it?
But
Well, yeah, because we don't really even know what we actually look like. All we see is this two-dimensional.
Right. That's right. And I know what I look like because
I don't know it. Pardon?
No, I know what I look like because I take selfies.
Oh,
but
those are distorted.
Even that's a reflection.
That's right. That's right.
You know, so it's not. It's not the
so
same.
then that makes me question: do any of us know what we really actually look like?
I only see inner beauty.
Good answer.
So it's only various shades of balls of light, just wonderful illuminating light, either really bright ones or really dim ones.
So Jeff, you mentioned that you had received an email from somebody saying that, you know, they thought they'd called Bloody Mary and you weren't going to do an investigation, but you do investigations, don't you?
I do, but not for teenage girls. That's totally creepy.
Yeah, that is
Yeah.
totally creepy,
Yeah.
and I'm glad you understand that.
I'm a father of a teenage girl, and if someone was like, yeah, I'll come to your house and look for Bloody Mary, no, the hell you won't.
Can you tell us about some of your investigations, some of your interesting ones, your scary ones?
So over the years, I love the big creepy abandoned buildings, the hospitals, the tuberculosis asylums, the old battlefields, places that have that history, the backstory to them are always the most interesting for me to investigate. I at this point now, I'm really more interested in the story than going out with equipment or whatever, because that equipment can fool you into thinking things. I mean, EMF meters and all that other stuff. I mean, it's a data point. It's interesting to some people, not as much to me anymore. But the story is always interesting to me. And talking to people that have had firsthand accounts is always interesting to me. So when I go somewhere, I want to talk to folks who've had experiences. I want to stand where they stood. I want to know as much as I possibly can about the location before I go. But one of the things that's important to me too is that, especially when you can go into a place and it looks like it did back then, whatever back then was. So like Waverly Hills Sanatorium in Louisville, Kentucky, this old tuberculosis hospital. You walk in, it's been abandoned since the 1980s. And this is where a place just, thousands upon thousands of people with tuberculosis came, and many of them died. This was a one-way ticket for those folks. Yeah. And when you walk in and you're going through those hallways and you look into the old rooms and you realize, like, whoa, imagine how they must have felt. Like, you have tuberculosis, which, by the way, so tuberculosis is still a huge global killer, but it's pretty much under control in our country, thanks to vaccines and things like that. But you walk in but imagine, like, you have this thing and you're going to this hospital where at best they can try to keep you comfortable. They really can't cure you, but they can keep you comfortable. And imagine you're whatever age you are right now, and you're being wheeled into this building, and this could be my last stop. I might just be here to die. You tap into that emotion. You're connecting to another human being, even though that human being isn't there right now. They were there. And that connection to me is what's so important about sharing these stories, about preserving these places, about talking about them, because you guys might be totally blown away by this, but plagues have happened before, and they will happen again. I know, it's crazy. I'm
crazy information.
I know, groundbreaking news right there. But I'm asking you to take my word for it that plagues have happened before and could happen again.
And so you think that going into a place like Waverly, the emotion leaves a residual energy, or are there actual ghosts there, or what do you think? Like, I read somewhere that you first encountered your first ghost in the Paris catacombs?
Yeah. So I was in Paris. This was 2003. And I was, down below the city. It's about 10:30, 11 in the morning. And I had a free day there, and I was walking around the catacombs, which is this series of tunnels under the city. There's hundreds of kilometers. because Paris goes back almost 2,000 years to when it was a Roman outpost. And then it just, a little village grew into a town, grew into a city, and on and on and on.
Yeah.
And so I'm down there, and in the mid 1700s to 1800s, they had moved millions of bones down below because the cemeteries were just so overcrowded. They're flooding into the streets. And as I'm down there, I finally come to this doorway that says in French, "This is the Empire of the Dead." And I walk through, and there's just rows and rows and rows of bones, human skulls, all right there at your fingertips. And it takes your breath away. It's overwhelming. And I'm walking through, and I was in this long hallway that was as wide as my two fingertips on either side if I were to stretch my arms out. And I saw a shadow the size of a man just step from one side and go to the other and go back again. And I just froze. And I said, okay, wait a minute. I'm down here alone. No one came up from behind me. They would have bumped into me. And then, you try to run through everything it could possibly be, other little side tunnels or whatever. And there was nothing. And if not a ghost, I don't have another word for what that thing was. And that was a place where, my last name is French. Obviously, I've got some French heritage. Bunch of generations ago. We've been in America a long time. We came down from Quebec before that. So it's been many generations before France. But still, like there's some connection I feel there, I guess in my very DNA. And still something weird happened. And I'll never forget it. Time froze, and I can still see it right now. All these years later. So that was a really profound experience. So yes, I have had experiences that I would call a ghost. Few and far between, but they've happened. They happened at Waverly. At that same night at Waverly Hills, the first night I was there, we were on the third floor, four of us, and we were just chatting about nothing. And a man stepped out into the hallway, just 3 doors down on the left. And we just all stopped talking at the same time. We run to the door thinking someone's up here that shouldn't be up here. Like, oh my gosh, what do we do? Call the police? What's going on? And there's no one there. And when you realize that the only way a living person could have done that was to either come out into the hallway where we were, which we would have seen, or jump out the third-story window, which really would have hurt, if not be fatal. And neither of those two things happened. And so they were just gone. And you say, well, I can't promise you there's life after death. I don't know how to scientifically explain what we saw, but the word I choose to use is ghost.
Is ghost. And now, have you ever been in a situation where you felt threatened?
I have. Really? Yeah, and and again, but I was so analytical about it. It was the strangest thing. I was at Eastern State Penitentiary in Philadelphia. And we were hosting an event there. So people were coming in to ghost hunt with us and stuff like that. And Eastern State is where we get the word penitentiary, because when it was first built, all the cells were solitary confinement. And there was a little slit of a window looking up at the sky where you were meant to pray to God, to feel penitent for your sins. Thus penitentiary. Mm-hmm. No human contact. If they had to move you from one cell to someplace else, they would cover your head so you couldn't see any living people. Must have been maddening.
Yeah.
But the design is also brilliant because it's like a wagon wheel. So if you picture the wheel hub in the middle is where the guards stay, and all the cell blocks shoot off in various directions from there. So four guards could stand with their backs to each other and pretty much see the entire prison. So pretty smart design. Mm-hmm. So walking down, one of the cell blocks, whatever. There's bats flying around. I don't have a flashlight. I have it, but I'm not using it because I let my eyes adjust. It's fine. Do this all the time. No big deal. I walk down another cell block. No problem. Then I walk down another cell block, and I get about the middle. And I was alone in this one particular cell block. And I get about the middle, and suddenly I realize I'm just petrified. I'm absolutely frightened. And I just went, that's weird. Right?
Yeah.
So I stopped and I walked back to the middle, back to the hub. And once I got to the hub, I was fine. I said, okay, all right. And then I walked a little bit down a different cell block. No, that was fine too. And then I got tried to be analytical about it. I'm going back down the same one just to see, maybe, whatever, something got the best of me. And I walked down, and there's something about walking through the cell block and these cages, right? The former cells, they're open. And they're pitch black in there. You can see where you're walking, there's enough light to see your feet and stuff. But once you see the iron bars of the prison cells and the open part of the prison cell, it's just black as black in there. You can't see an inch past the door. And I got halfway down again, and I'm scared. And I just said, you know what? I'm staying out of here tonight. I'm staying out of this cell block. There's a bunch of others. I'm just going to stay out of this one. And I realized there's some inner voice in me that's telling me to do that. And had I been in like an alleyway in a city sensing danger, I'm a fool if I don't listen to that voice there either.
Right.
Yeah.
Right?
That's
I mean,
your instinct on a molecular level, something in your body, which is a conduit for that kind of thing. Because that's our instinct. That's our primal instinct.
yeah. No, I agree with you. Yeah, it's we're animals at the end of the day. I mean,
Yeah.
that was I was sensing fear for some reason. Myself was trying to protect myself.
Yeah.
And so if ever you're around a person or in a situation and that, inner fear starts to well up, I think you're foolish if you don't listen to it.
Exactly.
So I watched a few of the New England Legend episodes.
Yay! Thank you.
Yeah.
Dude,
They're
they're
so
really
great.
awesome. Yeah.
I love them.
And the one I watched the 2019 episode, I was really intrigued with that one. Especially the story with the Black Agnes grave.
Oh yeah, sure. So go ahead.
What's the story with the Black Agnes grave?
So the Black Agnes grave is in Montpelier, Vermont. And it's the funny thing about it is if you go to this cemetery in Montpelier, which is the capital of Vermont, but it's a town really. It's a very pretty cemetery, very well maintained, but there's this huge grave that sort of commands your attention because it's very decorative. It's like this stonework and arc and semicircle, and there's this statue in bronze, which of course is like green now from the years of weather, and it just looks like the saddest woman draped in a sheet. And it's actually it's after the what's the god of death? Thais. Anyway, so it's
you said it was the Greek god of death, and I was wondering what his real name was.
I think it's no. Hades is the god of the underworld.
Oh, he's the legend of the underworld. Okay, yeah,
right.
He's Lord of the underworld.
I think I want to say Thais, and he brings you to the river Styx. He delivers you to the river Styx, where you then pay the ferryman to get across into the underworld. So he's the guy that delivers you from your life to the river, then you cross, and so on. So and it's this beautiful poem. So they say they call it Black Agnes because they say it's cursed, and she's sitting down in these robes, and it's right there. I mean, it's very easy to walk right up to it. They say if you sit in the lap of Black Agnes, you'll, like one version, you'll die within 7 days, right? Or some really bad thing will happen to you within 7 days. And it's an urban legend. It's one of those things that is circulated all around the area. And of course, high school kids, college kids, whatever. It's nighttime. There's not a lot going on in Montpelier sometimes, like especially if you're not 21 and you can't drink or whatever. So you dare each other. Hey, let's go sit in Black Agnes's lap. And so you go there and imagine you're standing there and there it is. No one's stopping you. I mean, you drove your car right up to it. It's easy enough. And someone says, go ahead, do it. You're not superstitious. And you go, I'm not superstitious. Nothing's going to happen to me. Just like right before you say Bloody Mary, that third time in the mirror, you're just like, yeah, I don't want to sit in the lap of Black Agnes right now. Like, I don't want to do that. And because you wonder. And then you hear stories like, oh, remember little Timmy Macabre? Yeah, he sat in the lap. And remember he died off that bridge? Yeah, that was like 2 days after sitting on the lap. And it's just, oh, I do remember that kid dying. Oh, that was horrible, right? But did he ever even sit on the lap? You don't know. It doesn't matter. Like, someone connects some dots.
Right.
Or even if he did sit on the lap, is there any connection at all between that event and dying off the bridge? And that's one of the things that gets to be so powerful. As soon as we have connected two things, that's how a conspiracy is born, right? I mean, this is, I don't know if you guys have access to the internet, but
no, not at all.
Yeah.
No.
Especially me.
The what?
Yeah. Just you wait. When people start these insane conspiracy theories, like, no, I know this is a government plot, right?
Oh, yeah.
Coronavirus is...
It's 5G, Jeff.
Right, yeah. 5G. Coronavirus was engineered to get 5G into our brains so they can read our thoughts. Yeah, and so suddenly you're already scared, you're already on edge, and someone connects one thing to another, and then now you're off. Even though there's no evidence, it's just a story you're willing to buy. Yeah. And that's how legends work sometimes. And if enough people buy into a legend, it can grow into something bigger, right? It can grow into a damn religion, right?
Well, could it even potentially grow into a tulpa?
Well, yeah, okay. So so tulpas. That's awesome. You brought that up. So tulpa is this Tibetan thought form, right? It's the idea that you can think something into reality. And if that sounds like crazy hoo-ha to anyone out there, how about this example? Did you ever work somewhere or go to school somewhere, and there was someone you knew? You weren't friends, you weren't close, but like you'd look at them, they'd look at you, and you're like, "Oh man, she hates me." Like she hates me, and I don't know why or how. We've never spoken. How could you hate me? I've done nothing to you, and like you stare at. I mean, this goes on for weeks, months, right? Mm-hmm. You stare across the office or whatever. You're like, oh my god, this person hates my guts, and you know what they're thinking? Oh my god, they hate me. They hate me. Why do they hate me? Right? Like they're thinking the same thing you're thinking. Meanwhile, none of you have done anything whatsoever. It's just you've both created this reality between you. You've created something that was based on nothing, that isn't real, but you've made it real to the point where you're uncomfortable. Like there you are by the water cooler. Oh, hello, right? Like you hate me. I don't know why. And so I think we can all sort of relate to that. So a tulpa takes that concept to a bigger level. The concept that if you can create that reality between you and another person, then you can create a reality that's literally willed into existence. So if there's a monster inside of you, like this concept of a monster, the belief is that we can create it into the world where literally other people would see that monster, even though it's not there. You made it. It's a projection from your own self out into the world to the point where other people can see it too. And then it becomes real for them in a way. So it sounds like a crazy concept, but then you think about the role that belief plays in our everyday lives. It's huge. I mean, the paper money in your wallet and whatever, Canadian money, U.S. money, it doesn't matter. Anywhere that you've ever used paper money or coin money, that stuff works on faith and faith alone, right? Right, we trade a $20 bill for a 6-pack and a pizza in the U.S. and probably about the same in Canada, right? Depending on what you're eating or drinking, we trade that $20 for food and beer because the person accepting it believes it's worth that, right? If that faith falters, created
the system and believe in it.
That's right, and if the faith falters. Yeah. Then suddenly I say, you know what? I'm uncomfortable. I have the pizza and the beer, and I know you want it. I'm uncomfortable taking $20 for it because I'm not sure of the value of that paper. I'm going to have to charge you $100. And if you want it bad enough, you're going to pay because I'm not sure I can get my value back out of it. And if this sounds crazy, it's happened before. I mean, during the U.S. Civil War, the Confederacy had their own money.
That's right.
And after the war, like a loaf of bread went from costing $1 to $50 to $100 to $1,000 to doesn't matter what you have, I'm not taking it, right? Because you can give me 1,000 Confederate dollars for a loaf of bread. There's not a damn thing I can do with that. It's like me giving you just like sheets of paper and saying, here, I would like that pizza. And you're like, I can't do anything with this paper, right? It's not worth the ingredients to me. That's the power of faith in just our monetary system. The stock market runs on faith. That's all it is, right? I believe this company, Google, is worth, tons of money, and this other company is not worth all that much at all. And that's what defines prices, and people get rich on that, and people go broke on that. Yeah. And that's just collective belief. That's how powerful it is.
Well, it's just like religion.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, enough people believe a story. It goes from like legend to religion. I was only half joking before. Like if enough people buy into a story, it becomes a belief system. And that belief system can transcend all kinds of things. Belief systems are so powerful, it can make people fly planes into buildings full of people.
Yeah.
Right? Like it can make people
drink the Kool-Aid.
Drink the Kool-Aid. Yeah.
Stories 100% shape our reality.
That's right. But it can also make people well who were sick. Right? It can also make people feel really good and really connected to the larger universe around them. So I don't mean to, it's easy to point out the really horrible examples where like, hey, let's cut our testicles off and ride this spaceship behind a comet. Right?
I never heard that one, but okay.
Yeah, the Heaven's Gate cult. The Heaven's Gate cult. This was years ago.
Wait. They actually cut off their testicles?
Oh, and that was long before they took their own lives.
Are you flipping kidding me right now?
No, look it up.
Okay, yeah, I gotta Google that.
Heaven's Gate, and then they all wore the same sneakers. They had these purple cloaks.
Yeah,
and
I knew about. I just didn't know about their bits.
I was gonna join that cult. I was into everything, every part of it except the cutting off part. And I'm like, oh, see, this is why this is not good for me. Like, I'm not gonna.
That's when you tapped out. No.
I was like, yeah, I'm cool with killing ourselves to get on the spaceship behind the comet and all wear matching sneakers. Totally cool with that. But yeah, I'm not cutting anything off to do it.
Oi.
It's good that you have your limits, Jeff.
Yeah, you got to know them. You got to know where your limits are. Wow. And people, and so the thing is, people die for legends. I mean, you become part of it. And so there was a story a few years ago that I looked into. It's in Louisville, Kentucky. It's called the Pope Lick Monster. Right? Great name. Right? Like that's that. It's
okay.
The Pope Lick Monster. And we got to talk to what's his face about making a movie about that. So
Jordan Peele?
Yeah, Jordan Peele. Jordan, when you're done with Candyman, call me. I've got your next. This thing is going to write itself. We'll knock it out in a weekend. So the Pope Lick Monster, there's a train trestle that goes by the Pope Lick Creek. I mean, I didn't make up the name. That's the name of this area.
Yeah.
And the train trestle is a pretty good stretch across this valley. And the story goes that years ago, a circus train crashed off the bridge, and this half man, half goat survived and has been living around the bottom of those train trestles ever since. And they call him the Pope Lick Monster, half man, half goat. Now, the funny thing about it is that the idea of a satyr, the half man, half goat, has been around since at least 500 BC.
Yeah.
So this is not a new idea that there would be, half human, half horse, or half man, half bull, half man, half goat. Like, that's been around for literally millennia. And so it was familiar enough. So again, do I personally believe there's a half man, half goat wandering the woods and by the creek below this? No, I don't. But it doesn't matter, because enough people found it interesting enough that they would go and look. And on April 26, 2016, a kid went out onto the railway bridge to look for the monster. He walks out way, way, way out into the valley, and then a train's coming. And he's too far out to make it back before the train comes, and his two options are to get hit by the train or jump off an 80-foot bridge.
Oh my gosh.
And he died. Like, this was on the news. Like, this made the news because I was asked to comment on it. And now here's this idea that sounds silly, funny, urban legendy, whatever, like neat story to share around the campfire, but there's a real death associated with it, and only literally 4 years ago. And now, right now, there's a ghost. Now there's something that haunts us. Now there's a bigger concept to it. The Pope Lick Monster arguably killed a man, right?
I mean, yeah.
Right? I mean, in a very indirect, weird, abstract way. But yeah, he's real enough that someone died for it.
So now, is the Pope Lick Monster the bigger draw to this area, or is it the ghost of the little boy that was looking for the Pope Lick Monster?
Yeah, I don't know if he was a little boy. I think he was
a man.
It was a man, yeah.
Actually says here it was a girl, a 26-year-old tourist from Ohio.
Oh, yeah, you're right. You know what? It was a woman.
April,
My bad.
No, it's okay.
Yeah. No, you're correct, though. It was a woman. So there you go. So she's, which, by the way, my hat's off to her, because usually it's guys that are dumb enough to do this. I'm glad to see women trying to break that glass ceiling and catch up with the stupidity of men. Well done, ladies.
Well, it's equality, right?
Yeah, I appreciate that.
All about equality.
Yeah, I only had the headline in front of me. Tourist dies. I was like, yeah, only a dude would do that. Nope.
Half-goat creatures seem to be a thing in America. We don't have them here in Canada. Maybe it's like a geographical thing. But there's the Goat Man Bridge as well.
Yeah, right. We did that on Ghost Adventures. We did the that was an episode of Ghost Adventures. We hold on to our stories, and I think so. A big part of a legend is that it has to sound familiar enough. It has to sound true enough that you say, oh, maybe, right? Maybe there's a possibility of it. And also too, think about how many times people have seen something and they're so desperately want to label it, right? So you see a big, hairy, upright creature in the woods, you just go, oh, Bigfoot. Well, you really don't know, right? Like, yeah, right. So, but by labeling something, we give ourselves this false sense of control, right? Like, well, if I say that's Bigfoot, they eat berries. They don't really eat people as far as we usually hear. So that's cool. It's just a weird creature that no one's ever going to find. And it makes us feel safer, even though the reality is you have no idea what it is that you just saw. You have no idea if that was like a half man, half goat or whatever. Someone gives it a label and it sticks.
Suddenly it's not as terrifying because it's not unknown.
That's right. And so even if with hauntings, this happens all the time. I call it the most famous phenomenon. Like there's all these bed and breakfasts around the greater Virginia area, right? And they have a sign that says George Washington slept here. And there's also a ghost or two attached to the building because they're like 250 years old, 300 years old. And they'll always say like, yeah, it's the ghost of George Washington. Right? Because he'd never hurt you. Right? He's still here. He slept here one night in 1783, and he's here now forever. Like this is where he's going to haunt. He's also haunting the 3 miles down the road, that B&B, and he's haunting the one that's 8 miles down the road. And but
every
he's the
B&B he spent one night at.
Right. And if it's haunted, yeah, they just say like that's George Washington. And I don't know. Maybe he really did like one or two of these places, or maybe it's that gardener who was drunk and fell off the roof in 1943, or maybe we're summoning the spirit of George Washington because we're in a place where he was and we're fascinated by that. I don't know, but by labeling it, we get to put some order onto that chaos, right? We get to say it must be this. I've decided, now I feel better. And that's also how conspiracy theories work, right? Like, oh yeah, this 9/11 was just a government plot. That was all just orchestrated as opposed to just random chaos because we feel better. Yeah. Even though the end result doesn't change, we feel a little better saying, yeah, it was a controlled thing by specific people in power, as opposed to just a couple of maniacs exploited a weakness in the system and hurt a lot of people.
People need an answer. People need an answer that they like, that they want.
And now more than ever, right? I mean, we live in a culture where it's staggering to me, right? If you disagree with it, you just call it fake.
Yeah,
and no, but that's
it's true.
I'm sorry.
Everybody's doing it.
Yeah.
No, but everybody's doing it now. Like everybody, oh, nope, that's fake. But no, 2 + 2 really is 4. Yeah. No, I don't think so. And I want to just live in my own bubble, and I'll find some news outlet that'll tell me 2 + 2 is 7. Yeah. And then I'll feel
Fox
better.
News. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry.
No, but my point is that there's stuff on the far left and there's stuff on the far right that's equally crazy, just on different parts of the spectrum.
Yes.
And there are people that live exclusively on those outlying points, and they feel better. Like they just listen to the far left or they just listen to the far right, and both are dangerous places.
I think it's when you adhere to any sort of belief so stringently that you're not open to anything else is how these people come about, right?
Well, sure, but also too, like I also recognize that like I've made my whole living on the fringe, right? Like,
Yeah.
these are not everyday occurrences, or if they are, people don't talk about them every day. But at some point, the fringe can bleed over, and it's what we're talking about, right? It's the bell-shaped curve, right? So you've got the outliers are on either side. So, for example, if you're ever looking at like service evaluations for anything, right? How would you rate our service on a scale of 1 to 10? The people that give you all 10s, you have to throw that data away because nothing is perfect. The people that give you all 1s, you have to throw that data away because nothing is absolutely horrible in every capacity, right? So once you throw out the 10s and the 1s, then you got to find the real number, and that's the bell-shaped curve. And so to me, like, these are fringe experiences. When we're talking about monsters and ghosts and various legends, they start at the edges of those curves. And if enough people talk about them, if enough people get interested, they start to creep in on either side, and they start to move in more toward the middle. Popular culture will draw them in. Movies will draw them in. Podcasts and books and everything else. And then we all start talking about them and trying to decide, well, is it just a story or is there more to it? And that's when they become something bigger than themselves. That's when they turn into a legend. That's what a legend is. And that's when, I mean, I love it. I love the whole process. I love everything about it. Like, why do we care about this story but not that one? It's not up to me. It's not up to you. It's a collective decision. We have collectively decided what's popular and what's not popular. And it's kind of amazing to watch.
Yeah. So now with all these people that are, the majority of the country, a lot of countries, have been issued stay-home orders and people are in their houses. Do you think that there's been an uptick in paranormal activity because people are realizing now that they're in their homes that it's haunted, or they think that it could be haunted? And the second question is, do you think that because people are in their homes, in the current climate that we're in now with the contagion, do you think that people could be bored and doing more paranormal based activity that could increase paranormal activity?
People have been drinking a lot too. I don't know about by you.
Yeah.
So funny thing, I started hosting these online speakeasies on my Facebook page and on YouTube. And it started because, like everybody else, I was locked in and I missed my friends. And I was one of those people, like, I don't FaceTime with people ever. Like, a phone call will be fine, but when this started, I was like, I'm not going to FaceTime with people. That's dumb. And then I was like, God, I miss my friends. I miss going to the bar. And so with software, I was able to like connect friends visually through like webcams and broadcast it. And we would just sort of like have drinks and talk about stuff. And then I found other people liked watching and having drinks with us. And so I've been doing this like 3-4 days a week now.
I had a beer with you last Friday, actually. You and Dave Schrader. Yep.
Dave, was that the one with Josh Gates too?
Yes, it was great.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, it was boy, it was just sort of like an excuse to drink, right? Yeah. So on the one hand, you've got people that are home, and one of the things that's been most interesting to me about this whole shut-in kind of thing is that people have been forced to deal with themselves more than anything else. When you are really busy, when you are getting up, going to work, taking care of the errands, getting the car fixed, taking care of your household chores, doing the laundry, putting the kids to bed, you pass out on the couch, you go to sleep, you do it all again tomorrow. You don't have to deal with yourself at all, right? You're an automaton, you're a robot doing all the things you got to do.
No time for introspection.
None. Suddenly, we're all left to ourselves now. And so I'm wondering, and this comes down to, are places haunted or are people haunted? So when we're left to look inside, some of us are getting to know ourselves again. And I wonder, some people may not like that person, right? And now they have to reconcile with that. And if you don't like the person inside of you, that's a bad place to be. And you got to fix it, right? That's up to you. It's up to you to change that person inside to reflect who you want it to be. And then it'll kind of radiate outward. It's really important that you know yourself. And and another way to avoid ourselves, by the way, if not being busy with work and jobs and car repair and all that other crap, the other way to avoid ourselves is drugs and alcohol. works like a charm.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You can pollute yourself and not deal with yourself either, and that's not good as well. We've had some drinks and stuff during the speakeasies, but
everything in moderation, right?
Of course, everything in moderation, including moderation. So there are times. So so I'm very curious right now. What might be happening is that you've got people that are home and dealing with their inner demons as opposed to the outer ones. And those things are coming to the surface and coming out to play right now. My sincere hope is that if anyone is struggling with that you take this time to kind of reconcile with yourself, to take moments for yourself, to find some inner peace, to put those things to rest. I mean, I've got the things that haunt me, and I deal with them. I tried it. For me, I deal with them in creative ways. I like to write. I like to work on projects. I like to tell stories. And that's my way of getting that stuff out of me to the point where I can be a good functioning human being, or the best that I can try to be anyway. Or I try to exercise. I run 3 days a week. I work out. I do yoga and stuff like that because I'm trying to keep the thing moving. And I don't do any of that stuff as an escape. I try to do it with some purpose. And in the hopes that if I do encounter a ghost in my house, it isn't from within, it's from without. and again, going back to the fact that we've all had to slow down, I'm curious how many places have subtle things going on all the time, but we're so busy that we don't notice them until everything gets quiet. And so I don't think activity has increased. I think maybe awareness of stuff that's coming from within and from without has increased because we finally have the time for that.
That makes sense. Frightening sense.
Yeah, you doing okay?
Yeah. Yeah, I am.
You sure? You want to talk about it?
Maybe off air.
No, do it here because you're not the only person, right?
Yeah, you help people. Every conversation helps people.
That's the thing, is that we're not, whatever you're going through, someone else is going through. And that's what I mean on the speakeasies. I've been trying to say, like, hey, I've had some bad days. I've had days where I'm like, I'm going to get up and I'm going to work on this and I'm going to, all these projects I've wanted to get to. That children's book that I started to write in college that I still have, it's still in a drawer. I know right where it is. I'm going to work on that. Like, nope, I didn't leave the couch. I played Xbox. I just didn't shave or shower or do anything today. I just stared out the window or just looked at my phone, and I have not a damn thing to show for today. And that's a bad day for me. That's a day that doesn't feel good. And I don't like having them, but I do have them because I'm human. And I think when we can talk about that, that's one of the things social media has done. We've got those friends that are like, everything is perfect in every way, and you're like, no, it's not. They don't tell you the bad stuff. They just tell you the good. Well, I think real human living is bad and good. And that's how life is.
Well, I mean, you can't, it has to be bad and good. You can't just have all good, or, you know what I mean? Yeah,
of course. I mean, you'd have no perspective.
Exactly. Everything would just be baseline.
Well, it's a balance, though, too, right? Like some days I'm at the gym with my salad, and some days I'm on the couch with my cupcake.
Darn right.
You can't really beat yourself up for the days that you just want to sit and play Xbox all day, because that's what you need to do that day.
That's right. And you got to give yourself permission to not write the great American novel if you don't do that. Or the great Canadian novel, or it's okay. It's okay to have those days.
Yeah.
And that's and I think just to tie it back to the stories and legends, we keep them around because they serve us in some way, because there's something we haven't reconciled yet. That's why we that's why we talk about them. That's why we explore them, because there's something, some lesson, some moral, some sermon from the past that we still need to hear. And that's why I love exploring these tales, because man, it comes up again and again. We talked about tuberculosis. There's also vampire plagues from consumption in the 1800s, and from the Black Plague, and we've dealt with this before and will again. And if we look to the past, we can see how we dealt with it. And what's amazing is that, and we're seeing it again right now. This is, if you're a student of history, we so desperately want to personify this virus, right? It's the Chinese virus. It came from a bat. It came from this. It came from that. Whatever. Back in the 1800s, the 1700s, 1600s, it was a vampire. You blamed a vampire. That's the only way I can explain that 3 people in my family died from this illness. When we pray and we go to church and we're really good Christians, still we lost 3 people. And that's because there's this personification, this vampire that attacked us, as opposed to just dumb luck, poor hygiene, right? Like whatever, and a virus that was spread from one person to another. We try to find some order in it because we don't deal well with like the random chaos theory that someone sneezed on something and I touched it and that's how I got it. That doesn't sit as well as like, no, I was attacked by a vampire because I'm a good person.
Yeah.
But I mean, ultimately, it doesn't boil down to whether you're a good person or not.
No, of course not. It doesn't, but it doesn't matter. And that's the thing, right? But when we're afraid, and this is true all the time, if you are living in a state of fear, you're not rational. No one is. No one can be afraid and rational. They don't go together at all. And so, picture it 150 years ago, and a family's just being torn apart by consumption. And you say, oh, you know what? Yeah, I've seen them in church, but they're probably not very good Christians because look, 4 of them died. And like that's not a rational thing to say. It's not true, but it makes you feel better. Like this must be God's wrath because you must have done something that we don't know about, and that's why you're being punished. They
need something to blame to keep themselves out of it.
That's right. Yeah, as opposed to like, wow, we all have to look out for each other. We have to keep each other safe, and we have to try to be clean and wash hands and all this other stuff and social distance, whatever. Like if we can blame someone, then we can say like, oh, just avoid people that are that color, or just avoid, people that have been in this place. And then you create others. And as soon as you think of another human being as something less than you, there's no limit to what kind of monster you can be. None. You are the worst kind of monster as soon as you think of another human being as less than you.
Yeah.
Wow, very
100%.
Profound.
100%.
I really, really like that statement. There is no rationality when you're in fear.
Never, ever. Nope. You are no different than the scared dog in your yard. There's no difference whatsoever. When you're afraid, and that's true of all times, no matter what. Yeah.
I love it. So now I was going to ask, this is the point of the show where I would ask you to promote any of your upcoming events, conventions.
So wait, I can do that.
Okay.
I can do that. So I do tons and tons of programs all over, and although I mean, I usually do like 40 to 60 a year, and I wish I could do twice as many as that. However, though many of them are in question right now, from the events to just my story nights and stuff like that, I have just booked 2 virtual programs at libraries in Massachusetts. But who cares that it's in Massachusetts, because people can attend from anywhere. It's a Zoom meeting thing, and while I prefer 1,000 times over to be in front of a live audience because there's magic and energy that happens when you're in front of an audience, I'm going to do my best to try to make this show work through a Zoom meeting and through a multimedia presentation, me on camera, and I'm starting to book those things. So that's pretty cool. You don't have to be out here. You can be anywhere, and a lot of them are free. You just have to register. So just go to my website, jeffbelanger.com. You can see what I have coming up. There's 2 booked right now, but I mean, I imagine I'll be booking many more in the coming weeks. We're all in this brave new world trying to figure it out together.
Right.
And that's what it's up to us to do. If we're going to live in a world where we can't congregate physically, well, let's just solve the problem. What can we do? Right? We can do these things. We can do podcasts. We can do FaceTime meetings, and we can do Skype, and we can do Zoom meetings, and I can do my speakeasies on Facebook Live and YouTube Live. We're just figuring it out as we go, and that's what we're going to do.
That's what we've always done.
That's right. That's what we've always done is we figured out a way, and that's what we're doing right now. So let's do it. Let's get out there and figure out what we can do, not what we can't do. We already know what we can't do. Let's figure out what we can do.
And support each other in the meantime.
Absolutely. Yeah, and because I mean, this is such an amazing time right now because all of us are in this together. It's not like you're having a bad day or you've had some run of bad luck. We're all in the same boat, right? And that never, ever, ever happens. And rich people are, poor people are, people of every religion, race, color, creed, and sexual preference and gender and whatever. We're all there. So, let's just figure out what we can do.
Make it happen. And make it happy.
If you can, absolutely.
You can.
Yeah. Spread some laughs.
Well, what I took away from this is that a vampire is responsible for coronavirus.
And thank you. At least someone gets it.
And thank you, Jeff. This has been such a treat.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, because of the nature of our show, I always have to explain this at the end. We always do a prayer of protection at the end of the show, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is. Amen. Jeff, thank you so much for being on the show. You really made me feel a lot better about the situation. And I can't thank you enough for being so gracious with your time, especially with the little hiccup that I had this morning with my internet. You truly are the most interesting man in the paranormal world. Well, thank you. And believe it or not, my schedule was a bit open today. So although lucked out. So it was all good. No, but what's funny is that my schedule is actually filling up. I mean, for the first 3-4 weeks, I would have been like, anytime. It's just crickets over here. But more people are connecting and more people are wanting to do interviews and do talks and schedule like phone meetings. So, which is great. We're getting back to it. Even if we have to stay put, we're getting back to it. And that's a good thing. Yep. Well, I hope that you stay well and we'll be in touch. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Kari, you kick ass. I love you. And thank you, buddy. Until the next episode, stay scared.